Lewis Hamilton has completed his first training sessions with Ferrari, and it's safe to say the experience has been a mix of highs and lows. His first run in FP1 came with some struggles as he tried to get a proper feel for the SF25, but by the time FP2 wrapped up, he had started to find a better rhythm. However, despite the improvements, he was still trailing behind Charles Leclerc, who managed to go 0.410 seconds faster in the second session. Adjusting to a brand new car is always a challenge, especially after spending over a decade with a single team. For Hamilton, this process is all about understanding how the Ferrari behaves under different conditions. The big question is, how does he feel after his first proper outing, and what is the team's take on his initial performance? With the Melbourne Grand Prix just around the corner, this has been one of the most anticipated storylines in Formula One. At one point during the session, Hamilton sent a message to his team, highlighting an issue. He was struggling to turn the car. This unexpected difficulty added to his learning curve, but after making adjustments, he managed to improve his lap times significantly. By the end of FP1, however, he was only able to finish in 12th place, 0.8 seconds behind the fastest lap set by Lando Norris and 0.6 seconds behind his own teammate. Despite these early struggles, Hamilton remained focused and determined to close the gap. But can he adapt quickly enough to match Leclerc's pace? The second practice session was a clear improvement for Hamilton. As he continued to adjust to the SF25, his lap times became more competitive. At one point, he even helped Ferrari secure a temporary 1-2 position before eventually being pushed down to P5, 0.410 seconds behind the session leader, his teammate Leclerc. The narrowing gap between Hamilton and the front runners suggests that he is getting more comfortable with the car, but there's still a long way to go. Ferrari's engineers have been closely analyzing his performance, and they remain confident that as the weekend progresses, he will continue to improve. In fact, Lando Norris himself mentioned that Ferrari would be much faster here in Melbourne compared to Bahrain, and so far, that prediction seems to be holding up. However, there's still a noticeable difference between Hamilton and Leclerc. A gap of 4 to 6/10 of a second might not seem like much, but in Formula One, it's often the difference between fighting for pole position and starting from the third row. The challenge for Hamilton now is to find those missing tenths and ensure he can support Ferrari's battle in the Constructors' Championship. He has already admitted that driving the SF25 feels very different from what he was used to at Mercedes. After 12 years with the Silver Arrows, adapting to Ferrari's unique characteristics is a massive task. Yet, despite the adjustments he needs to make, Hamilton has made it clear that the car doesn't feel bad. It just requires a different driving approach. His goal is to refine his technique before the crucial qualifying and race sessions. Speaking about his first real experience behind the wheel of the SF25, Hamilton described it as an exciting but challenging transition. He acknowledged that the car feels unlike anything he has driven before, but he remains optimistic about his ability to adapt. He explained that FP1 was more about getting used to the car, while FP2 allowed him to push a little more. The progress is gradual, but he believes he's heading in the right direction. Ferrari had already hinted that the nature of the Albert Park circuit would suit them better than Bahrain, and early signs seem to confirm that. Leclerc's long-run pace looked particularly strong, showing promising tire degradation that could be a major advantage on race day. However, Ferrari knows they need both drivers performing at their peak if they want to challenge McLaren and Red Bull for top positions. Leclerc can't carry the fight alone. Hamilton needs to be right there with him, especially if the team wants to stay competitive in the constructors' standings. One of the biggest adjustments for Hamilton is getting used to a completely different car philosophy. Having spent over a decade fine-tuning his style to suit Mercedes' approach, stepping into a Ferrari requires significant changes in technique. He admitted that while the car feels unfamiliar, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just demands a different way of driving. He also reflected on how this transition reminded him of past career milestones, saying it felt similar to his first year with Mercedes back in 2013. While his initial pace isn't where he wants it to be, Hamilton remains confident that with more time in the car, he will unlock stronger performances when it truly counts, on Saturday and Sunday. Ferrari remains unfazed by Hamilton's early sessions, knowing that adapting to a new car takes time. Even team principal Frédéric Vasseur reassured fans that this learning phase is completely normal. He pointed out that last year Carlos Sainz had similar struggles in practice, but still went on to win the race. This highlights that early results in practice don't always reflect what will happen when the lights go out on race day. Vasseur explained that Ferrari isn't expecting Hamilton to be at full speed right away. Instead, the priority is for him to gradually build confidence in the car, understand its systems, and establish a strong working relationship with the team. He also mentioned that while Ferrari's technology and processes might not be identical to Mercedes, they aren't drastically different either. The biggest challenge is simply adapting to the new environment. Hamilton has already made some progress, improving his lap times between FP1 and FP2. He shaved off 0.2 of a second. In the later session, and while he's still trailing behind Leclerc, the trend is moving in the right direction. Ferrari expects him to continue making gains as he spends more time behind the wheel. However, there's another factor that could shake things up: Melbourne's unpredictable weather. With rain expected on Sunday, the race could become even more challenging. Wet conditions make overtaking harder, and Hamilton will need to be at his best if he wants to gain positions. That said, his skill in the rain is well known, and if he fine-tunes his approach, he could turn the tricky conditions into an advantage. Ferrari's design philosophy for the SF25 could play a crucial role in how Hamilton adapts to different track conditions. The pull-rod front suspension is expected to provide better control on circuits where front-end grip is essential, and Albert Park fits that description. However, if the rain arrives as predicted, everything could change. Wet weather racing is a different challenge altogether, requiring precise car control, strategic tire management, and quick decision-making. Hamilton has built a reputation as one of the best wet-weather drivers in Formula One history. His ability to find grip where others struggle has earned him multiple victories in challenging conditions. If rain does hit on Sunday, his experience could be a major asset for Ferrari. That said, he still needs to address some of the initial handling concerns he raised during FP1, where he mentioned struggling with turning the car. If those issues persist, even his wet-weather expertise might not be enough to bridge the gap to Leclerc and the front-runners. Despite some visible frustration, in the garage, Hamilton remains positive about his progress. His comments after practice reflected a calm and measured approach, emphasizing that he is still in the learning phase. He acknowledged the differences between the SF25 and his previous Mercedes cars, but stressed that he is enjoying the challenge. He also reminded fans that even with limited testing time, the car is starting to feel more familiar with each lap. Meanwhile, Ferrari's focus is on optimizing race pace. While Leclerc has shown promising long-run speed, he will need Hamilton's support to fend off McLaren and Red Bull. If Ferrari wants to fight for the Constructors' Championship, both drivers need to be competitive, not just in qualifying, but throughout the race. The team believes that once Hamilton fully settles in, he will be able to deliver the level of performance they expect. While Hamilton is still adjusting to his new surroundings at Ferrari, the early signs suggest that he's on the right path. His lap times improved between FP1 and FP2, and with each session, he is gaining a better understanding of the SF25's behavior. However, the real test will come on Saturday in qualifying, where outright speed will determine his starting position. If he can close the gap to Leclerc and position himself near the front, Ferrari will have a strong chance to fight for victory. One concern that has sparked discussion among analysts is Hamilton's body language after FP1. Sky F1 pundit Martin Brundle noted that Hamilton looked slightly frustrated, especially when he walked out of the garage with his helmet still on, a gesture that often suggests a driver isn't entirely happy with their session. However, Brundle also pointed out that it's too early to make any serious judgments. The transition from one team to another is never seamless, and it's natural for a driver to go through some struggles in the beginning. At this stage, Ferrari remains optimistic. Leclerc's pace has been strong, and the SF25 appears to be more competitive at Albert Park than it was in Bahrain. The big question now is how quickly Hamilton can close the gap to his teammate. If he can make another step forward in qualifying and avoid major mistakes in the race, he could play a crucial role in Ferrari's battle against McLaren and Red Bull. As the Melbourne Grand Prix approaches, all eyes will be on Hamilton to see if he can deliver a standout performance in just his first race weekend with Ferrari. While he may not be at his absolute best yet, his experience, adaptability, and racecraft make him a serious threat. Whether it's a dry or wet race, the 7-time world champion is never one to be counted out. So, what do you think? Can Hamilton match Leclerc's pace and help Ferrari challenge for victory? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to check out our latest video on the biggest surprises leading up to the Melbourne GP.